Today, on behalf of Simplilearn, we're going to talk about communication. Communication is a leadership knowledge area, and it's the tool we use to keep our stakeholders engaged and to interact with our project team. Well, they're a subset of our stakeholders too, isn't it? Let's in this section define communication and project communications management. We'll look at communication methods, technology, and channels. We'll explain the elements of a basic communication model, and we'll also walk through our processes. In communication, let's actually agree. It's a two-way process of transferring information from one entity to another. You notice we don't say individual. It can be an entity. Here we have the project that's sharing information with different stakeholders. Two-way process of transferring information. So information is sent, information is returned. You spend 90% of your time in ensuring proper project communication. It's not just doing the communicating, but it's controlling the communicating. It's analyzing whether or not you're doing it well. All of that is going to take up your time. Let's talk about methods. Now, there's different methods you'll find in the PMP too. A couple of the methods that you'll find in that material. Let's see here. Oh, goody! I get to put up a new. Notepad. I can have push communication, which means I send information to you. I could have pull communication, which means you pull information from me. We need to determine the needs of our stakeholders to determine which one of those is appropriate. Either one or both at times. I've done both on projects, can be very appropriate. However, I want to spend more time talking about written versus verbal and formal versus informal. This is critical to understand. If you understand this concept, it makes communication planning very easy. Why would I want communication to be more formal than informal? Well, to make things clear, right? There we go. We're good. That makes it easy. Now, why would I do written over verbal? Ah, that's the kick. Two reasons. One, I need evidence. I need to go back and make sure that we talked about this. I need to capture things and keep it. I need to control change. I don't want everybody to go in and just update these documents. We need some type of evidence, but we need to make sure that it is as it was. And so I'm going to authorize. I'm going to have both of these things in place. Now, if I have a very effective project team I work on multiple projects with, my communication can be both informal and verbal because we know from working to each other what our habits are and our behaviors are, and we can infer a lot of information from informal verbal communication. However, there are times that written informal may work and it may not. Let's talk about notes before we talk about email. My notes, if you looked at my meeting notes, I don't work in a straight line. I basically decorate a whole paper. And so if anybody was to look at my notes, it would be very confusing. What do I have to do? If I'm to share my notes with someone, I'm going to have to add some structure to them, maybe put them in a template, maybe put them in outline form. This means I'm going to have to formalize them. Same thing goes for email. Email has no structure. Well, it has a subject and a body, and that's all. The problem is, in order for you to have clarity in emails, you must formalize. And how do we formalize? We create a template, right? Or in the subject header, we say project X, topic, issue, and we're going to have it coded so that everybody looking for this type of email can find it easily. The body of the email needs to be formalized too, and sometimes we do our email structure much like we do formal documents, where we have an outline method. We could send a status report, but that has to be highly formal, and so we'll have bulleted items in our email. This is the formalization of email, and it's a call to action for all of us to understand that email itself is informal and it may be useful, but there are times it's not appropriate and you need to add formalization to your emails. There are some components of our project where we share information that always have to be written and formal. Long distance communication requires absolute clarity and evidence. Presentations are really interesting. This is not a PowerPoint. This is somebody standing up in front of an audience and presenting. There is formal structure, and the best way to do this is making sure that there is a consistent structure that's followed. Okay, communication methods. Communication technology. All of the technology you see are appropriate. It depends on the needs of the project, right? Or the stakeholders or the environment. If I work with the government and with a lot of attorneys, guess what? I'll be using fax. If my projects are marketing campaigns, I'm going to use a lot of social media as my communication, because all of a sudden my stakeholders are going to be the audience, the public, if I'm releasing a product here in 6 months. Any communication technology is appropriate based on the needs of the deliverable, the project, the stakeholders, the environment. Communication channels is a topic we do need to spend a little time on. The channels are included in communication. It's not just project management, but it's business communication. They talk about this too in business school. And one of the reasons why they talk about this is to actually drive home the concept. As groups grow, communications gets very, very complicated. There's a couple other reasons why they teach it, but that's the primary reason. Now let's understand our terminology first. When I say communication channel, it means if these are the individuals in a team or in a group, communication channel is the line that connects them. And actually, if you want to, you can define a communication channel as a one-to-one opportunity to communicate, okay? That's all it is. Now, we can actually determine the number of available channels based on the number of people in the group. And you'll notice on the right-hand side here, if we have 4 people, we have how many channels? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? 6. Now, I do want you to observe something else, and I want you to think about this a lot. Here you are as the project manager. There are 3 channels that you participate in, and there are 3 channels you do not participate in. There is one-to-one exchange of information on a project that you do not participate in. That's information that's critical for the project. It's your objective to capture that and make use of it. Okay, this is not devious. This is not negative. This is just human nature, a fact of life, and a fact of nature itself. So, we can actually calculate the number of channels in a group. Let's do it. And instead of people, let's call them nodes. In systems theory, we call the connectors between the lines nodes. So if we have 2, we only have 1 channel, right? 1 opportunity. 3, oh, that's easy. We can map that out too, right? If you have 3 nodes, you have 3 channels. 4, we said 6, right? 5 is 10. 10 is 45. 20. Well, what would 20 be? Well, actually, there's a formula for this. And if we look here, all you have to do is memorize this formula. This is one of the other 2 formulas. Once you go beyond time and cost management, this is one of the 2 formulas that you do want to memorize for the exam. Let's see here. So, if our formula is this, then 20 is nothing more than 20 times 19 divided by 2. Let's do that. $190. So what does this show us? It shows us as groups grow, communication gets very, very complicated. Let's talk about our communication model. If you remember our discussions in the other knowledge areas, a model is a simplified version of a complex system used to demonstrate a concept. And it's usually one concept from many, okay? And you're looking at very specifics. So we're talking about communication here. And this isn't the way communication occurs, but it is a model. Now, this is a really interesting model because this happens in technology and telecommunications as well as human interaction. It works. It's a simplified model. Two-way exchange of information. Here's the sender, and they have their information, right? In order for that information to cross a medium, it has to be encoded. How do we encode our communication when we're just talking? we put it into speech, right? And we use a certain language. And that encoded information becomes a message which then can traverse our medium. Once it reaches the receiver, it's decoded and turned into information. Doesn't stop there. There may be other information here that needs to be encoded and sent back as a feedback message, which is then decoded and turned into feedback information. There we go. This is how it works. Now, the magic relies on a couple things. This encoding and decoding pair must match, as well as this decoding and encoding pair must match too. Which means that these two match as well, right? As long as we share decoding and encoding, we can actually exchange information across the selected medium. We do have noise. Noise actually keeps this from occurring in two ways. One way is if there's a break where the message cannot be received. Okay, this is, you're talking in a test lab and the machines are very noisy. There's also the conversion to information here. Noise can also break that activity. If I had a bad sleep last night, or if I have something on my mind, if I'm distracted, that can be noise as well, because it keeps the message, even though it's been received, from being interpreted or converted into information. This actually brings us to another problem. One of the problems we have as a sender of information did they receive the information? Do they know what to do with it? In telecommunications, we solve this. As part of the encoding decoding, we have some rules, and one of that rules is that we send back with the feedback message a little piece of information that says ACK. ACK means acknowledge. It also means two other things. I received information. I know what to do with it. In your communications, your objective is to actually do this work. How do you establish that ACK in your communication? How do you receive that ACK from your receiver, and how do you validate it? That is ensuring proper communication. In review, let's make sure that we understand what all these terms are, okay? Encoding is translating our ideas into a language or into a message that can be transmitted across a medium, received and interpreted. Decoding is translate that message back into information. Medium is a communication method. And we didn't talk a lot about this, but it could be open air. It could be a telephone. It could be you watching this presentation. Noise is anything that interferes with the transmission or the understanding. Can it get to the receiver? Can the receiver interpret it? Noise blocks either one of those or both. Let's define communication management. It includes the processes that are required to ensure timely and appropriate planning, collection, creation, distribution, storage, retrieval, management, control, monitoring, and ultimate disposition of project information. Do we ever get rid of project information? How do we do it? Under what considerations do we have to do it? Do we need to validate it? One of the other roles of the project manager is ensuring timely access to the required information. And everything that we've talked about actually supports not just access, but timely access. Our processes are very simple and they're very common sense. We're going to determine how we're going to communicate and how we're going to use communication. We're going to do the communications in execution, much like our other leadership knowledge areas. And we'll also control communication. We'll make sure that we're communicating effectively, and we're going to have some plan for incremental improvement. Let's plan communication management. We develop an appropriate approach and plan for project communication based on what? Stakeholders' information needs and requirements and available organization assets. Pretty nifty, isn't it? Besides our stakeholder register and OPAs, we have to refer to our EEFs and our project management plan. We're going to go through communication requirements analysis, communication technology, models, methods, and meetings, and that's going to help us establish our plan. That plan is going to be used in processes inside communications management and outside communication management. Guess where that plan goes? It goes into our project management plan. It gives us an opportunity to update our project documents. Example documents, stakeholder register, obviously, since we're referring to it, we could be updating it. Risk register, any of the 36 to 39 project documents. Let's manage communications now. We create, collect, distribute, store, retrieve, and ultimately dispose of project information in accordance to the communication plan. Here's the plan we need to refer to. We're going to take in work performance reports, OPAs, EEFs. We'll refer to communication technology, communication models, communication methods, information management systems, performance reporting, and we will update our project management plan here. We will update project documents and harvest best practice, but primarily we're going to communicate. This is where we do our communicating. Information management system. Let's talk a little bit about that. In integration management, what did we have? we had a project management information system, right? Or a PMIS. What did this help do? It manages the outputs of our project management processes, right? And this could include my local folder on my computer or a network share or even SharePoint, right? Now, when I say outputs of the processes, project documents, project management plan, data, issue logs, everything like that, right? So, now, in information or communication management, I have an information management system. And that manages project information. So let's actually define an information management system, okay? We will use SharePoint to not only store, but also communicate. Okay? On the front page of SharePoint, what will we have? Weekly status report updated every Friday by excuse me, by noon. We could have a dashboard. Linked to Excel spreadsheets. There we go. This is how I'm going to share information. Okay? The two often go hand in hand. Why? Because the project documents often hold the information we need to communicate. Now, I want to actually show one real neat trick for you. You notice here we talk about work performance reports. You should be asking, where are these coming from? This is an incredibly important question. Why do we have work performance reports here? Let me show you how to get to that information. It's in the PMBOK, so we have to open up my copy. And yes, the PMBOK is a critical tool for preparation. I actually have the page that this process is on. Let's see here. We're managing communications, so we're over in page 298. The data flow diagram in each of these process sections helps us a lot. Look at where work performance reports come from. If you're further curious, I'd look up monitor and control project work and see where it turns information into work performance reports. But this is where the reports are collated and reviewed, and they're sent out to our stakeholders and to our project team. We also control communications. We monitor and control communications through the entire project lifecycle. Why? To ensure the information needs of the stakeholders are met. So when we're actually interacting with our stakeholders in managed stakeholder engagement, we create something called an issue log. It logs all the issues that are brought up to us. Here's our project management plan. Here's our project communications plan. Project communications itself, I stand corrected. This is us observing our communication. So this is our actual. This is our plan. Once again, in monitoring controlling, we're performing variance analysis. We have work performance data, which is another actual. And we're using best practice, OPAs. We're going to reference our information management system and apply expert judgment and use meetings. And this turns work performance data into information. We could generate change requests here. We could update the project management plan, project documents, and we could harvest best practices. We ensure the information needs of the stakeholders are met.